Welcome, everybody, to the second of a number of Delta Hack related sessions. For this session, we've got Stephen Yu from Databricks here with us to share a little bit about actually creating and using Delta Lake with Apache Spark. Just as a reminder, Delta Hack is a hackathon that we're hosting from pretty much today to the end of the week. Just a little thing to get some people introduced to the Delta Lake ecosystem, some of the open source projects that are under the Delta Lake umbrella. If you search for Delta Hack 2021, you'll find more there. And then if you've got any questions about the stream, you're more than welcome to ask those in the YouTube live chat. I'll be monitoring that and interrupting as is appropriate. But I'd also encourage you to go to delta.io and join the Slack channel. There's a link there for our Slack workspace or the Delta users Google group. But without further ado, I figure I'll pass it over to you, Stephen, and you can go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to first start off by showing you 3 different ways that you can create Delta tables using the SQL APIs, the data frame writer APIs, as well as the Delta table builder APIs. And then we'll go ahead and start doing something interesting with those tables. I'll show you how to do updates and deletes and merges and demonstrate schema evolution, take a look at history, all kinds of exciting things. So I guess we'll start with the most basic thing is creating a Delta table using SQL APIs. So let's go ahead and do %SQL and say create or replace table. And this syntax should be really familiar to you because it's just standard SQL table creation DDL. Let's just call this one super creative Delta Hack 2021. And then we're just going to put in some dummy columns. So we'll just say column 1 and be real creative. We'll make that a string. And then I'll create a column called date and make that, no surprise there, a date. The real difference here is I'm going to say using Delta instead of saying using Parquet or using ORC or some other file format. And that's really it. Let's just go ahead and execute that command. And it's going to create a entry in the Hive metastore in a database that I have already created ahead of time called, again, Delta Hack Super Creative. And this table is going to have no records in it. So I'll show you how to create the table now using the data frame writer APIs. And then we can insert some actual data, make things look a little bit more interesting. So let's just go ahead and title this one data frame writer APIs. Try to make that look not silly. So let's import some functions. This is a Python notebook, so I don't have to do anything special here. From PySpark.sql.functions import expr, because I'm going to need that. Let's create a data frame. Let's just generate some fake data. So let's do something like spark.range. For the purposes of this demo, let's just say create 100,000 records. We'll make some things up. So let's say we have an ID with spark.range. So let's say if ID mod 2, let me get rid of those. If ID mod 2, oops. If ID mod 2 equals 0, we're going to have this column print 2. Otherwise, it will print bar. Yeah, super, super creative. As column 1, I also should probably do that. All right. And then let's see what else. Let's generate a date column that's not going to be completely today. So let's say with date, we'll create an expression. Let's say cast, and then we'll concat this month. So 2021-06. Okay, and then we'll concat. We'll just generate a random date. and 5 times 30 as integer. All right, plus 1 as date. All right. Okay, and then, yeah, we'll start with that one. Let's see how that works out. Make sure I didn't make any syntax errors there. Okay, good. That's actually surprising. So we'll do df.write.format. Now we're going to be using the data frame writer APIs. You'll notice here that instead of saying, again, parquet, ORC, whatever, I can simply just say format delta. And then we'll just stick in a mode. Let's say overwrite. And then we'll do a save as table. What save as table does is it actually, as it writes the data out, will actually create the metastore entry for you. So let's go ahead and do that. And populate our table with 100,000 records. And then I'll just show you real quickly, do a quick sanity check on this table. So that count star from Delta Hack 2021. As soon as that finishes writing. All right, let's take a look. This should have 100,000 records. And there we go. That's not a surprise. So far we've covered how to create a Delta table using SQL APIs. This is how you do it using the data frame writer APIs. If you didn't want to make a metastore entry, you don't call save as table, you just call save. And then you provide a path or a location that's out on blob storage or something. But let's go ahead and now use the table builder APIs. So let me go ahead and copy this guy. Delta table builder. The advantage here is that compared to like the data frame APIs, you can actually specify extra information like comments and table properties. There's also a new exciting feature in Delta Lake 1.0 that's experimental called generated columns. So I'll go ahead and show you how you can create that. So let's go ahead and do from delta.tables import star, and then we'll import some data types as well. And then go ahead and create. And the delta.tables import star is what gives you access to this delta tables.create if not exists. Pass in the Spark context. And then let's just go ahead and create a new table name. So the previous one we called Delta Hack 2021. We'll call this one Delta Hack 2021 _ new, just because I'm creative that way. Let's go ahead and add some columns and make this a little bit more interesting. So let's go ahead and add an ID like we had before. Make this a long type. Let's go ahead and add another column, column 1. We'll make that a string type, just like we had before. We'll add another column. Let's call this one timestamp or TS, and then we'll make that a timestamp type. Timestamp type. All right, and then we'll add, and this is the cool one. We'll add a generated column. So we'll call this one date. It's going to be a date type, but it's going to be generated from our timestamp. Generated always as parentheses cast timestamp as date. So now what this allows you to do is it allows your source data set to have just a timestamp in it, not explicitly specifying the date, and the date will automatically be computed for you. And then we'll just go ahead and partition this whole thing by the date. Execute. All right, and that's because it's not Delta tables, it's Delta table. And I cannot type today. So let's go ahead and execute this.
So Stephen, I may have missed it, but why would one use the Delta Table Builder API versus just the traditional data frame API?
That's a great question. So compared to the data frame writer API, you have a few more options for specifying the different types. You can even add column comments. You can specify table properties. You can do generated columns. Like these are not things that you can actually you can specify as when you're doing a data frame.write. I mean, I guess data types you could if you were to provide a schema for the data frame up front, but it gives you a little bit more control over how the table gets created.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, so now since we've written that out, let's do a quick describe on this table. Describe, and since I can't type, I'm just going to copy and paste that. Make sure that, here we go, we have a column, or we have a table with 4 columns, and it's partitioned on my date column. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and write some data to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that data frame. Actually, well, I've already defined the data frame. So let's just go ahead and copy that expression that I had up here and modify it just a little bit so that we can write a timestamp. So instead of the date, I'm going to go ahead and write a timestamp. And this is just going to execute current timestamp. Right, but otherwise, we still have our ID. We still have a column. Actually, I should probably specify that I also do want the ID column here. All right. So let's go ahead and write that. df.write.format delta, overwriting. I guess that doesn't really matter because there's nothing there. But let's just go ahead and write it into my new Delta Hack 2021 table. Right, now we're going to write another 100,000 records with 1 timestamp. What I'm going to go ahead and show you is that the date column does automatically get calculated. So select star from Delta Hack 2021 new. Go ahead and let that run. And there we go. We have our ID columns. We have our timestamps. Notice in our data frame, we did only insert the timestamp, but the date automatically got calculated without any additional work on your part. So just to review, I showed you how to create Delta tables using the SQL APIs, the data frame writer APIs, and now the Delta Table Builder API. Let's go ahead and do something more interesting with our Delta Lake table. So we'll just call this, I don't know, acid on Delta Lake. All right, so let's just say I want to run some updates on my Delta table. For whatever reason, I decided that I don't want my column to be called bar anymore. Maybe I want it to be called Baz. So there's several ways that I can do this. I can either use the Delta Table APIs. I can use the SQL APIs. I'll just go ahead and show you both. So let's say my table equals Delta Table dot for name. We called this one Delta Hack 2021 new. Then I'm going to call an update on this object. So my table dot update. The condition is going to be where column 1 equals foo. I'm going to actually let's do this instead of changing the value. Let's just go ahead and update the timestamp for this. Let's just say so update the TS column, and we'll make that the new current timestamp. All right. Go ahead and run this. For name is missing. Oh, yes, I almost forgot. Got to pass in the Spark context. There we go. All right, so now we're actually going and finding all the records inside the files that we've written out that have column 1 equals to foo, and we're going to update the current timestamp. So if I just go ahead and do this, if I query the table again, let's take a look at what changed. So the original write here happened at 1642 UTC. You can see now I updated all columns for foo at 1645. Date remains unchanged.
Steven, do you mind if I interrupt with another question?
Please do.
Someone from chat wanted to know if the generated column syntax that you showed a little bit before with the Table Builder API, if that was available for SQL DDLs as well.
It is, and at the I don't know it off the top of my head, but let me follow up. Let me follow up at the end with some documentation.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I showed you updates. Let's do something interesting. Like I wanted to delete all the records that contained bar in column 1. So very simple. Again, I have my table defined. So I'm just going to say delete where column 1 equals bar. Okay, rewriting those files that contain these records. And then if we did a quick sanity check there, you'll see that all the records now with bar are gone. I showed you the Delta Table Builder APIs for how to do all this. The SQL syntax you should be pretty familiar with. It's just the same, like update and then the table name, set column equals to current timestamp, where column 1 equals bar. Same thing with the delete. It's going to be just basically delete from table where condition. So, I mean, I come from a SQL background. I like writing SQL, so I think it's a lot faster for me, but you have options. Let's see, what else? Let's talk about overwriting schemas. So periodically your table changes. Maybe something's changed upstream. Let's just say I want to overwrite this table and get rid of that date column. So let's just go ahead and do this. I have a data frame that I created earlier. It just has 3 columns in it. I don't want the generated column anymore. So how do I overwrite my Delta table? You actually just have to specify an option that's called overwrite schema. So if I say dataframe.write.option overwrite schema, and let's set that to true. And this time we're really gonna overwrite the table. Save as table, Delta hack 2021 new. And then we'll do a describe and copy and paste. And you'll see that generated column is now gone. And this new table is not partitioned. Let's see. Let's talk about another interesting thing that you can do with Delta tables. Basically, these are called merges and upserts. So let's say you have a new data set and you want to do something like, if this data on this key already exists in my target table, then let's just go ahead and update that data. If that data doesn't exist, then we're just going to insert it. It's pretty common for ETL, for CDC type use cases. I'll show you how to do this using both the Table Builder API and the SQL syntax. So let's see, I'll just label this section merge. Table Builder API, we have my table, which I should probably redefine because I've changed my table. Table.forName, Spark. We're going to not forget the context this time. Delta hack 2021 new. All right. And then we're going to take that same data frame that I got defined up here somewhere. All right. So I'm just going to copy that. I got my data frame, records, same ID and timestamp. So let's go ahead but actually let's make this different. Like my new data set's not going to have foo and bar. It's going to have as and bar as column 1. And we deleted all those records for bar. So this should update our data set. Now the IDs are going to be the same from 0 to 99,999. So it should update those records that say foo to baz and then insert these bar records. So we'll say my table, we'll just, for the sake of making this easier, I'm going to go ahead and give this an alias and say merge And we'll take our data frame and we'll give this an alias. We'll just call this updates and say dh.id equals updates.id. All right. And then when there's a match, we're going to go ahead and update this. So set column 1. Column 1 is going to be the value in our update set. And then I'm going to go ahead and update the timestamp as well. Updates.ts. All right. And then when it is not matched, then we're going to insert. All right. And the values that we insert there are just going to be the same. Column 1, updates.column1. And then for column 2, it's just going to be our timestamp from our update set. Let's just make sure that I've got all of these in the right place. All right. Looks like I've got a superfluous. All right. Dot execute. Let's go ahead and run this. And of course, because I typed something incorrectly. Updates.column1. There we go. Okay, so now what's happening is exactly that. It's looking for all the matches on ID, and when there is no match, we insert that new record. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Where is my select statement? All right, so you see here all of these records that previously said foo have been updated to Baz with this new timestamp. And then all these bar records, which didn't exist in the table anymore because I deleted it, are now there. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and say, I want to evolve the schema again. Instead of replacing the schema, let's say something upstream happened and a developer or a platform team or somebody decided to add extra columns to my data set. So let's call this one Schema Evolution. All right, so I'm going to create another data frame. We'll just call this one df new, and except I'm not going to type all this out again. I'm just going to say copy this. All right. But instead of just having ID and column 1, let's just go ahead and copy this. All right. So we'll create a second column 2, but we'll inverse the logic here. So if ID mod 2 equals 1, then we'll say foobar. Otherwise, it's going to be Baz and bar. And then we'll call this one as column 2. Still got the timestamp there. So this is now a data frame that has an extra column. We'll just go ahead and do dfnew.write.option merge schema. Now, what happens with Delta tables, if you don't specify merge schema, it will actually stop you and say, hey, the schema of this new data frame that you're trying to write to this table doesn't match, so you can't do this. But if you explicitly say that you want to evolve the schema or merge the schemas, you can go ahead and provide this option. So .mode, let's just say overwrite, and then we'll do the same as save as table, Delta hack, 2021 new. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that, and then we'll do another describe table and see that we've got that new column in there. And there it is, added to the end. Cool, so we've made a number of changes to our Delta table. How do you sort of make sense of all the things that have happened? And then what if you want to go back in time and maybe pull some data, or maybe new data engineer that you just hired on your team pulls a mulligan. I may or may not have done this before, and update something with the incorrect or absolutely missing where clause. Let's take a look at our history. So describe history, and then name of our table. We'll show you the history of changes that have occurred over this delta table, because you can sort of think about, and I'm sure as Denny mentioned earlier, the changes to the table are a series of new snapshots of this table. So you can think of, at this point in time at version 0, this is when I created the table. At version 1, I went ahead and I added a bunch of data. At version 2, I updated some data. At version 3, I deleted something. Then we did some merges, so on and so forth. So let's just say I want to see how many records I had in my table right after I did the delete. So let's do something interesting. So if I'd say select count star from the table as it stands right now, after all of my updates, there are 100,000 records in it. But after I did the delete earlier, I deleted half of those records because I deleted everything where the column was bars. So what if I wanted to go back and take a look at that? So we'll do a select count star from this table, version as of, and the delete happened at version 3. That version has 50,000 records. And accordingly, you can go ahead and actually see the snapshot at that point in time. So these were the values for these columns as of version 3. You can also inspect this using timestamp. So instead of saying version as of, you would say timestamp as of. And then, like everything else, of course, there is a way to do this programmatically using data frames. It'd just be a matter of doing something like spark.read.format, and not actually executing that before I'm done typing it, format delta, but then you pass in an option like version as of, and I deleted everything that I just typed. So version as of, and say like version 3 dot table delta hack 21 new. Likewise,
just to let you know, Stephen, we're almost at the top of the hour.
And that is excellent timing, because this was the last thing that I was going to demonstrate. Awesome. Let me just go ahead and execute this so that I don't leave with an error on my screen. Okay, perfect. And then you can just do display. All right. So that is all I wanted to demonstrate today. We covered history, time travel, we covered schema evolution, we covered merges, we covered schema replacements, and we covered 3 different ways to create delta tables. So yeah, I think we're good.
Cool. Well, thank you, Stephen. If you want to connect with Stephen, he's Stephen Yu on LinkedIn. What he showed here today is using Delta Lake, of course, but using it in the Databricks product. You don't have to use Databricks. I am actually a customer of Databricks. I like what they do a lot, but a lot of everything that you can do or that he showed you today is in Delta Lake 1.0, which was recently announced and available for download now. If you want to learn more about how to use Delta Lake, we have documentation at docs.delta.io. And without further ado, Stephen, thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.